A very good morning and welcome to this morning edition of Yes 101's Visual Radio. Bringing you the news, I'm Hashni Pathirana. Let's start off with a look at your headlines.
Newsfirst headline.
Global services slowly recovering after bug causes IT chaos. Government may enforce price controls if concessions not passed to customers, says Minister Nalin Fernando. Teacher principal trade unions to launch Work to Rule campaign from Monday. In international headlines, 105 dead in Bangladesh protests, nationwide curfew imposed. And in your sports, it's cricket. Hosts Sri Lanka kicks off Asia Cup campaign against Bangladesh tonight. Now taking a look at your top story this morning, businesses and services around the world are slowly recovering after a massive IT outage affected computer systems for hours yesterday. Businesses, banks, hospitals and airlines were among the worst hit after cybersecurity firm CrowdStrike issued a faulty software update which affected Microsoft Windows. After CrowdStrike admitted that a bug in its update was to blame, CrowdStrike's CEO apologized for the disruption and said a fix had been issued, but also admitted it could be some time before all systems were back up and running. Several Sri Lankan companies, including Sri Lankan Airlines, were also affected by this. The Sri Lanka Computer Emergency Readiness Team, SLCERT, says that a report has been requested from 40 government institutions to find out the extent that Sri Lanka has been affected by the sudden IT collapse. While some airline services around the world are beginning to return to normal after thousands of flights were cancelled, operators expect some delays and cancellations to persist through the weekend. Many businesses are now dealing with backlogs and missed orders that could take days to resolve. The global chaos has sparked concern over the vulnerability of the world's interconnected technologies and the extent to which a single software glitch could have had such widespread impact. In more local stories, Minister of Trade, Commerce and Food Security, Nalin Fernando, said that if the business community fails to pass on government-provided concessions to consumers, price controls will need to be implemented for certain goods. He also announced that proposals to amend the Consumer Act are planned to be submitted to Parliament within the next 2 weeks. Minister Fernando made these remarks during a news conference held at the Presidential Media Centre yesterday under the theme Collective Path to a Stable Country. In more local news, teacher principal trade unions announced that a Work to Rule campaign will be launched as decided earlier for 2 weeks, effecting Monday the 22nd of July. The decision comes after discussions with government officials, including Minister of Education Dr. Susil Premjayanta, Treasury officials and Public Service Commission officials failed to reach an agreement.
International news.
And now taking a look at your international news for this morning. At least 105 people have been killed in Bangladesh as police cracked down on unrelenting student-led protests against government job quotas despite a ban on public gatherings. The government has decided to impose a nationwide curfew and deploy the army. Earlier in the day, telecommunications were disrupted and television news channels went off the air. Authorities had cut some mobile telephone services the previous day to try to quell the unrest. According to reports, police and security officials fired bullets and tear gas at protesters and banned all gatherings in the capital, Dhaka. The protests, which began weeks ago but escalated sharply this week, represent the biggest challenge to Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina since she won a 4th consecutive term in office after January polls.
Sports news.
And finally, taking a look at your sports news for this morning, hosts Sri Lanka's first match of the 2024 Women's Asia Cup cricket tournament kicks off tonight at the Rangiri Dambulla International Cricket Stadium. Now, Sri Lanka, playing from Group B, will face Bangladesh on tonight's match. Meanwhile, India extended their dominance over Pakistan at the Women's Asia Cup, notching up a 7-wicket victory in their opening game in Dambulla yesterday. Pakistan, batting first, could only manage 108 runs at the end of all wickets, but the Indian team chased down the target comfortably, losing just 3 wickets. Tonight's match between Sri Lanka and Bangladesh will commence at 7 p.m. local time. And with that, we wrap up this edition of Yes 101's Visual Radio. I'm Hashini Pathirana. Stay tuned for more of the very latest. Thank you for watching.